Hello and welcome. This is Matthias 76. We are decoding the headlines. Wanted to take a look tonight just briefly at what's going on over in France with the yellow vest protests. It's all the news. A lot has been going on there in France in particular about these protests. But the thing is, as is so often the case with the mainstream media, they don't say a whole lot about what the protests are really about. There's not a lot of information as to why so many people in France have been taking to the streets and joining in these yellow vest protests. Well, the vests are yellow. Apparently in France, it's the law, socialist country, that every car has to have a yellow vest inside. And so by wearing the yellow vest, they're showing everyone that this protest has to do with automobiles. And in particular, it has to do with automobiles and gas tax. Now, I did some digging, interesting information. In converting costs for fuel in Europe, in France specifically, to US dollars and converting liters to gallons, in France this past week, a gallon of diesel, and over half the cars there run on diesel, a gallon of diesel was $6.15 per gallon. It had been as high as $6.59 a gallon in the middle of October. Just to put that in perspective, average price for diesel around the world is $1.45. That's the current price as of this past week. So this tax that they were going to add, that was scheduled to be added, was to add another 30 cents a gallon onto the fuel prices. So needless to say, people got very upset, and the people this hits the hardest are those who are out in the country, who don't have access to the rail systems, etc., and have to drive a good distance to go to work. And those rural citizens also have a much higher unemployment rate. The average in France is an 8% unemployment rate. So with that scheduled increase, the people had a fit. And even more, there were more increases scheduled after this one, and there had just been one at the beginning of this past year. So that really put President Macron on the hot seat. He looks uncomfortable there. And so he repealed the tax. They're not going to do that increase. And guess what? No one cared. They're still mad. It got them worked up and riled up. Now, it is important that as we look at this and think, oh, there's pushback against all this socialism in France, and throughout the European Union, and go down that road. I don't know that that's true, because as these protests have grown and increased, what they seem to be wanting, apart from their president to resign, is a better buffet at the free lunch that is the socialist system in France. So I don't want anyone to get the idea, and we should not get the idea, that they're marching back to the right, having swung far off to the left. That would not seem to be the case. They want more free stuff. That's why the protests are now increasing and continuing on. I found an interesting article on, this is from Institute for Energy Research, and it's Macron's carbon tax disaster. And the quote I wanted to look at in this specifically is this: the January tax increase would have been the equivalent of 30 cents a gallon for diesel. Around half the cars in France are diesel, and about 10 cents a gallon for regular gasoline. That's on top of the increase that we talked about in 2018 and one scheduled for the future. This is the salient point. These tax increases have been explicitly billed by Macron as a means to meet France's commitments under the Paris Climate Treaty, making fuel more costly in an effort to reduce consumption and the carbon dioxide emissions associated with that consumption. It's not about anything economic. It is about shutting down carbon emissions and coming into compliance with the Paris Climate Treaty. Got a snapshot of the first page of that climate agreement here. I downloaded it for myself. I am going to read it. I have not read it yet, but I'm going to. It will be painful, but it's part of my job. What this put me in mind of, this engineering being done through economic means, taxation, it put me in mind of something we touched on just this past week on Thursday with Alexandria or Ocasio Cortez and her making the statements that she made. We referred to it as Ocasio Cortez wacky talk in our Decoding the Headlines on Thursday. But this is the quote that she had given. As a matter of fact, it's not just possible that we will create jobs and economic activity by transitioning to renewable energy. See the tie-in? But it's inevitable that we are going to create jobs, Ocasio Cortez said. It's inevitable that we're going to create industry, and it's inevitable that we can use the transition to 100% renewable energy as the vehicle to truly deliver and establish economic, social, and racial justice in the United States of America. In that broadcast on Thursday, I referenced Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. Here's a picture of the snapshot of the PDF I have, the cover of Agenda 2030. And note what the title is, Transforming Our World. That's what they're trying to do. It is what Macron is trying to do in France. It is what Ocasio Cortez and so many others here in the United States hope to achieve. It is about establishing a one world order, and these things such as energy and climate are just the means whereby they force us into the new world order that they have designed. So when you see Macron, realize he's the same as Ocasio Cortez. They go together. They are one and the same. They are part of a global agenda. Just like when you see Agenda 2030, see the Paris Agreement on climate. They are one and the same. They are working toward the same ends. It's all about the same thing. They are peas and carrots, as Forrest said about he and Jenny. Ocasio Cortez and Macron, they're peas and carrots. Agenda 2030 and the Paris Agreement, peas and carrots. And to quote a line from one of my favorite movies, the character Jerry, Mel Gibson's character Jerry in Conspiracy Theory, they are all part of the same damn dumb show. Come to think of it, as I look at this, Jerry's office looks a lot like mine. I guess I need to get a hat. This is Matthias 76. We have decoded the headlines. God bless. Have a great day. That concludes our broadcast for today. Immediately below on the left is a link to subscribe to our channel. When you subscribe, make sure to click the notification button. Leave your comments below. We love to hear from you. This is Matthias 76, and together we are decoding the deception.